complaint today. He said that your administration has largely criticized the oil and gas industry and at times vilified it, and that the administration would need to take a change in approach in order to make progress on reducing energy prices and to increase supply. Do you have a reaction to that, sir?
It's mildly sensitive. I didn't know they'd get their feelings hurt that quickly. Look, we need more refining capacity. This idea that they don't have oil to drill and to bring up is simply not true. This piece of the Republicans talking about Biden shut down fields, wrong. 9,000 of them, okay?
Well, President Biden talking about the CEOs of big oil, including Chevron. He's not meeting with them. His administration is going to meet with them first as he gets ready for this Saudi Arabia trip. The Chevron CEO said at a meeting, Mike Wirth, saying he does not expect another oil refinery to be built in the U.S. ever again, pointing to decades of federal government policies as the reason why. Quote, there hasn't been a refinery built in this country since the 1970s, Wirth said. I personally don't believe there will be a new petroleum refinery ever built in this country again. Let's bring in our panel. Guy Benson, political editor at townhall.com, host of The Guy Benson Show on Fox News Radio. Leslie Marshall, Democratic strategist, and Josh Holmes, co-host of the Ruthless podcast, former chief of staff to Senator Mitch McConnell. Josh, what do you think about this, the rhetorical back and forth between the president and oil companies as he gets ready for this trip abroad?
I just find it so amusing that he's constantly befuddled that the oil industry writ large doesn't believe his commitment to oil. I mean, he literally campaigned on an entire platform of shutting down fossil fuels in this country, and by God, he's done a pretty good job. He's now in a hell of a political pickle, which is his problem, and so now it's back to more refining. Well, I mean, you don't get to start your administration with shutting down the Keystone Pipeline and then throw up your arms and don't understand why it is that nobody wants to get into the oil business. Yeah, of course, this is set against the backdrop of going to Saudi Arabia and begging OPEC for more oil. But, I mean, this is a real problem for this administration. Frankly, the American people are making them pay in the polls for it.
Leslie, I mean, there is no doubt that as a candidate, he did campaign on shutting down fossil fuels. And now, in Josh's words, he's in a pickle.
He's in a pickle because the American people want to blame just Joe Biden, just a politician, just this administration, or my party. But the problem is the other side of that, and those are the oil corporations. First quarter of this year, record profits for these oil corporations, specifically these CEOs. They're really who's to blame at the pump. And the president is right when he talks about the opportunity for drilling. As you know, there are thousands of permits out there, and you've heard the oil company CEOs saying, we're not going to do it. We're not going to drill. So the CEOs have no problem taking their money and investing on stock markets abroad, not ours, and putting money back into this economy and not reducing prices to help the Americans who go to the pump each and every day to get to their jobs and to have their livelihood.
Just a few moments ago, Guy, we caught up with Senator Joe Manchin, Democrat from West Virginia, talking about spending up on Capitol Hill and whether there's a negotiation ongoing for more spending. Take a listen.
We're not going to spend any more money, I can assure you that. We've spent enough. We're $30.5 trillion of debt. We've got to get our debt under control. If you want to get inflation under control, control your debt. Have an energy policy that gives us energy security, using all of the above energy sources, while still being able to invest in the clean technology of the future.
Are you and Peter Schumer still talking about Build Back Better?
I talk to everybody.
Talk to everybody, but specifically about Build Back Better?
No Build Back Better, it's gone.
No Build Back Better, it's gone, Guy.
Manchin sounds a lot more like Josh Holmes and Leslie Marshall there, and I'm relieved to hear it. We'll see how this goes down the line, because there are these rumors that he's chatting with Schumer. They might come to some agreement where it would not be a debt-increasing bill, but it doesn't sound like there's a huge appetite there for a lot more spending or tax increases from Joe Manchin. So whether they get something like that across the finish line between now and Election Day, I'm hoping sounds dubious and not plausible, but I will just hold my breath figuratively until that moment, because they're certainly trying, at least on the leadership side.
January 6th committee hearing today dealt with efforts by Donald Trump, then president, to put some pressure on state authorities to decertify the election for Joe Biden and to have alternative electors for him. Here's the Arizona House Speaker, Republican.
Anything that would say to me, you have a doubt, deny your oath. I will not do that. And on more than one occasion throughout all this, that has been brought up, and it is a tenet of my faith that the Constitution is divinely inspired. And so for me to do that because somebody just asked me to is foreign to my very being. I will not do it.
Understanding that a lot of the pushback, Josh, is about there's not another side asking other questions. This is a Republican who is for Trump, who stood up to the pressure in Arizona. It was pretty compelling testimony today.
Look, it was compelling testimony, but what struck me, Brett, most of all about today was just how narrow the audience is for all of this, because there wasn't a bit of information that we got today that we haven't had for well over a year. The American people have largely processed almost all of this. I mean, almost entirely. And if you have any doubt about that or need affirmation for it, the other testimony was provided by Brad Raffensperger, Republican Secretary of State from Georgia, who just won a Republican primary last month in the state of Georgia. People have processed all of this, right? And I think that in the end, it does expose Democrats to some problems of not focusing on things like inflation and the economy.
I got 10 seconds here. Sorry, Leslie, go ahead.
No pressure. You know, when you have Texas saying we're not going to accept the election results, maybe we do need more Americans to tune into something like this just to see how close it was, what was happening, and what was being asked of these individuals. That man's testimony made me want to go back to church on Sunday.
All right, panel. Thank you.